Hey everyone, today we're looking at a variety of details throughout Dead by Daylight's realms. Let's get into it. In almost every realm you can find newspapers that are titled Behaviour Times. Behaviour, of course, being the game developers. The newspapers further mention some killings. You can also find a series of teddy bears with blue and white stripy t-shirts in the maps that have been through the Realm Beyond update, and they look quite out of place. This is a possible reference to a previous Behaviour game named Naughty Bear, somewhat of a more comical predecessor to Dead by Daylight. On most maps you can find lots of concept art. Pretty much every single painting in fact appears to be concept art, which I think is quite cool. Throughout the realms you can find multiple calendars. On Ironworks of Misery, in the Central Foundry office area, there is one dated January 1972, and highlights both the 1st and the 17th. This may be a reference to the hillbilly. The massacre at Coldwind Farm is said to occur in 1972, so possibly this is the exact date, the 17th, on which it occurs. This same calendar can also be found inside of Azarov's office on Autohaven Wreckers, and in various other realms. Despite the name of Azarov's resting place, we cannot actually see the resting place of Azarov, with the name of the map actually being the only thing to really reference him on this map. Inside of Azarov's office, there is a certificate of participation visible, and whilst the name is smudged, it looks somewhat possible that the name is Danny Johnson, which is of course one of Ghostface's names, suggesting further that at some point he could have worked for Azarov. On Gas Heaven, when walking over the cord outside the gas station, you'll hear a chime ring. This would have been to notify the store worker to come out and fill up a car with gas after entering the station, the chime notifying them. On the handle of the Autohaven Crusher, a dismembered hand can be seen. You can also see body parts throughout the Autohaven realm, within the tires and crushed cars, varying from torsos to arms and to hands. On the exit gates of the Coldwind Farm maps, you can see a pig on top of a unicycle. This pig is called Hamlet. In the bins outside the Thompson House, a bottle of pills can be seen. This is a possible reference to Billy's mother taking caffeine pills to help her cope, mentioned in the Mother's Helpers add-on. And yes, I literally searched bins for this video. On the Disturbed Ward realm, there is luggage with the initials A.P.C. I spent ages thinking whose this could be, thinking it was some obscure lore character or something, but then I kind of figured out that it's probably just Crotus Prenn Asylum, CPA, or backwards, A.P.C. Yeah. Upstairs in the asylum you can see a similar bone saw to the one that the nurse uses. On Father Campbell's chapel, the number 12 can be seen on the suitcases within the carnival section. This is possibly a reference to Clown being the 12th killer. The travelling circus on Father Campbell's chapel is named the Happy Go Circus, seen on the main sign and various attractions. Inside of Clown's trailer there is reference to multiple killings in newspaper articles. One mentions a dismembered body, possibly the Clown cutting fingers, but also potentially a reference to the Wraith and Autohaven Wreckers. The article next to it is from Washington and marked as April 20th. This is possibly an article on the Trapper, who was situated in Washington State. There are lions featured over Clown's caravan, keeping in theme with his suit, which features what looks to be lions on the buttons. This makes it pretty likely that he stole the caravan from the same person he also stole his costume from, the same ringmaster. Of course, on this map too, we can't forget Maurice the horse. Maurice has a third eye in the center of his head, given to him by the entity, after he was burned and blinded when entering the realm. On the Pale Rose map, the steering wheel within the boat is incredibly low to the ground. I'm not sure how this thing was steered. Yup, that's the detail. I just thought that was really strange. On Larry's Memorial Institute, the broken sign found at the exit gates has both IN and UTE, respectively on each side. This sign presumably read Institute in full. On Mother's Dwelling we can see what is likely a family portrait of Anna, her mother, and presumably her father. The antlers mounted beneath are also presumably from the elk that killed Anna's mother. On Springwood you can see the hole, or Crawlspace area, that Nancy and Quentin go through in the A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010 film. Inside the Springwood houses you can also find a painting that looks very similar to Nancy Holbrook. On the game you can find schematics for the reverse bear traps, as well as spare pig masks on shelves. The numbers of 3, 52, 20, 20 on the hooks of the game is a reference to a scene from Saw, where Zepp Hindle is viewing the primary game room of that film. On the family residence map, the main building does not feature any glass. This is strange, as we know when Rin was killed, she fell through a window, glass shattering as she fell. The estate instead features Shoji windows and doors, which are made of wood and paper. On this map we can also see a family photo of presumably Rin, her father, and her mother. We can further see an Oni mask inside, as part of a shrine. Above the mask is a missing blade, presumably the one that Kazan wields. This blade was here prior to the release of the Oni, disappearing when he was introduced. On the outside of the residence, we can see the Yamaoka family crest embedded into the side. On the Sanctum of Wrath, when you turn your head from the statues surrounding the main structure, they will move to face your way. They will not move though if you look at them. On the Mount Ormond Resort, you can still see the faded Legion mural that Jeff painted. Across the resort walls we can see lots of graffiti, presumably the Legion's doing. One piece in particular I found interesting was underneath these snowshoes, with a little face that looks a bit like Dwight. On the counter inside the resort you can find a leaflet advertising Mount Ormond. It has a series of reviews: best vacation ever, best quality for the price, best ski adventures, the kids love it, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Then at the bottom it has quite a change of tone, and it says, far away, do not contact, mountormond.resort at fun, I think it says. On Dead Dog Saloon, the Shape's knife can be seen pinned into the poker table in a back room within the saloon. Also at this table we can figure out the altercation that took place here. There is a fallen chair, with the largest pile of money on the floor beside it, suggesting this player was either winning or cheating, and got shot for it. When the piano plays itself in the saloon, the notes do not align with the key presses. On Midwich Elementary School, you can hear someone crying in one of the bathroom stalls. Also on Midwich, in the upstairs locker room, you can find one of the lockers shaking and leaking blood. Throughout the halls of the Raccoon City Police Station, there are posters featuring STARS member Brad Vickers, recruiting for the STARS team. Brad is featured in Resident Evil, and is seen to die in Resident Evil 3. On the RPD, when playing Survivor, in rooms with typewriters, you can hear the safe room music play, that also plays in Resident Evil games. However, when playing as Killer, you do not hear these, as you're the thing being hidden from, I guess. Leon's desk is missing from its spot in Resident Evil 2. Jill's number is visible on one of the STARS office whiteboards. On the outside of the RPD, you can hear a helicopter. Interesting that it's still flying around in the realm. On the outer walls of the Area of Crows map, you can see bodies and faces twisted into the brickwork. Inside the main structure, there are very odd globes. The globes name Australia as New Holland. This was apparently the name it had up till around the 1800s, as it was previously discovered by Dutch navigators in the 1600s, and so named New Holland. There is also an ocean named the Aethiopic Ocean, which is apparently what the southern half of the Atlantic Ocean was named, up till the 1800s also. So I guess the Area of Crows map is taken from around that time. On the upper floors of the main building, you can see Carmina's artwork of a crow on an easel. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed these rather random details, and be sure to drop any that you may have seen down below. Thanks, and goodbye.